Some people are fortunate enough to find their people very early on. I didn't. I am blessed that I've got a couple of very good close friends that stuck by me. I lost a lot of friendships. People just didn't know what to say, how to interact. It just felt too awkward for them. And so they backed away graciously and quietly. And there was no arguments. They just faded. And that's a really tough reality and a different kind of grief for mums as well. And dads, we've started to support dads as well now, because that's a very unspoken about topic over here. I don't know what it's like in the US, but dads seem to get left behind a lot on that. But yeah, it took me a long time. And so I would say to anybody else that is struggling, it is worth the wait. Persevere, and it is about quality over quantity. You don't need an army. You just need one or two people that truly get it.
Is your child experiencing delayed potty training? Are you having a difficult time affording your incontinence care? If so, there's a solution at no cost to you. Our trusted partner, Airflow Urology, provides medical-grade continence care essentials like child pull-ups, adult briefs, bed pads, and more, free through your insurance. With Airflow, your favorite bladder control supplies are sent right to your doorstep with their discreet monthly deliveries. Customers have reported close to $200 a month in savings with Airflow Urology, and over 2 million people have trusted Airflow to verify their insurance benefits. All you need to do is fill out their quick 2-minute form. Visit airflowurology.com/nourishingautism. That's aeroflowurology.com/nourishingautism and let them know I sent you. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm excited to talk about a really important topic today. I am interviewing Charlie Beswick, who is Our Altered Life on Instagram, and we are talking about how to find your village as a parent with a child with special needs. A lot of people come to me saying that they're feeling very lonely in their autism journey, or they just don't feel like they're fitting in with the groups on Facebook. They don't feel like they have friends that know what they're going through. And I think that this is a conversation that really needs to be happening publicly. It is really difficult to raise a child with special needs, and to not be able to have your village, or to be told to find your village, and you're like, well, where do I find it? It can be really disheartening. And so I wanted to share some tips from Charlie, who has really built her village from the ground up and now helps other moms find their village as well. Charlie is mom to 18-year-old twins, Oliver and Harry, and is the author of the best-selling book, Our Altered Life, a brutally honest account of how she came to terms with a life that she never expected. She's also an award-winning blogger, and her family stories have been featured internationally on Sky TV and national press. Charlie founded SEND Gin Cheese CIC to support maternal mental well-being at the point of their child's diagnosis and beyond. She also founded More Than a Face charity and has spoken with over 7,000 students to educate them on visible differences, including behaviors typically associated with autism. She's a teacher with over 16 years of experience in both primary and secondary schools. I'm excited for you to listen in on this really honest conversation, and I hope that it encourages you to have these kind of conversations out loud, and also helps you find your village as well. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Nourishing Autism Podcast. I'm so excited to be sitting here with Charlie Beswick. Charlie, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. I'm excited too.
We have been in contact, I think it's been a year now, but I have been following you and just love everything that you say. And I got to come in and chat to your community as well. So it's really fun to finally be able to have you on mine. So I appreciate it.
It is. Thank you. No, likewise. It was brilliant having you with us.
Oh, thanks so much. Well, so tell us who you are, what you do, and more about your family.
Okay, so as you will tell from the accent, I am from the UK. I'm mum to twin boys, Oliver and Harry, who turned 19 this year. I don't know how that happened. When my twins were born, despite having a perfectly healthy pregnancy, I was told that Harry had been born with a rare craniofacial condition. So for him, that meant that he'd been born with no eye socket, no ear, no nostril, and a short underdeveloped jaw. We were also told that he may have brain damage and not walk, but thankfully he's completely mobile. He is autistic, so although he's almost 19, he functions much younger and will need one-to-one care for the rest of his life. So that's Harry. Oliver is undiagnosed autistic. He is dyslexic as well. So we've had quite the challenge. It's as stressful as it is wonderful and rewarding at times. And I was a teacher when the boys were born. But as lots of mums find when they have children with additional needs, being able to juggle both lives and priorities was really tricky. So I ended up reducing my hours, and I currently still teach 2 days a week, but I'm just about to leave to work on my own business.
Wow. And you run an organization called SEND Gin Cheese, which we will talk about later. But do you want to give us like a small scope of what that is before we really dive into it?
Sure. Well, SEND Gin Cheese started as a free online community on Facebook because when my boys were born, there were very few support groups out there. It was 2005, so Facebook was very new. And I knew I wouldn't have joined a group called SEND Help and Support. So over here in the UK, I don't know if the US is the same. SEND is the acronym for Special Educational Needs and Disability. So that's where the SEND bit came in. So I thought I wouldn't have joined SEND Help and Support because I kind of wanted to think I could do it all on my own, but I would have joined SEND Gin and Cheese because it sounded a bit more fun. So that's where the name came from, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it shortly.
That's amazing. We don't have that acronym here. And so I remember when we first connected, I was like, okay, I need to find what I know that this name is amazing. And it made so much more sense. And then I love the flair on the gin and
I think people join thinking it's a subscription service, so I hope they're not really disappointed.
I mean, it sounds like it could be a great dual business. I mean,
Yeah, possibly. It's
well,
what gets me through the day.
I love it. So I know that this might be kind of a vulnerable question, but you are a pretty open person online and have shared your experience about Harry's diagnosis and everything that you've gone through to help get him the right services. And you also pull this into your work with SEND Gin and Cheese. And so I would love for you to share about your experience as you were helping him get that diagnosis, his autism diagnosis, but also the different supports that he would need. Can you share more about what that process looked like for you?
Yeah, of course, of course. I think for me, and you're right, I am very honest with what I say because I tried to be the mum I needed right at the beginning. So I can be brutally honest at times. So I have said online and in my book, which is Our Altered Life, not a plug there, but just to let everybody know that's what my business is called. But for me, I didn't want to be a SEND mum. I didn't want a disabled child. It's not the life I'd imagined. It's not the life I'd planned for. I am a recovering perfectionist, a reformed perfectionist. And I just felt that I'd let everybody down, including Harry, including him. And I felt like a real failure that I couldn't even give my child the basics of a face, let alone any quality of life. And then the autism diagnosis then went on to really robbed me, as I felt at the time, of what I felt would be a lovely relationship he might have with his twin brother, that bond that I'd been dreaming of, knowing that I was having twins. And so I really struggled personally. For the first 6 years, I did that very quietly. I call it the lie we wear, where we kind of smile behind, we would struggle behind this smile. And then my marriage broke down and I ended up having a breakdown when the boys were 6. And at that point, that's, I think, when my sort of self-reflection journey began, and I realized that the only thing I was actually guilty of was blaming myself for something that had never been my fault in the first place. And that had stopped me from being the mum I needed to be. It was never my fault. It was never anything to do with Harry and Harry's appearance. It was always to do with my perception of failure and my perception of letting everybody down. And that's why I help mums now, because over in the UK, there's a huge gap in the market. There's a huge void of support for maternal mental well-being and mental health at the point of you getting that diagnosis that life's going to be very different. Life is going to be altered from the one that you planned. And then in terms of care that Harry needs, he is verbal to a degree. You have to know him to be able to understand what he's saying, and he can't have a spontaneous conversation with anybody. So he's really quite limited. He's got no sort of road safety, no stranger danger. He needs personal care attention. I have to help him to dress and to wash. So he's going to need that forever. And I think for parents, that's another huge sort of elephant in every room. What's going to happen to my child when I'm not here to do that for them? So again, that's something that I address with the mums as well.
I think that these are resources that are obviously so needed. And I think sometimes are hard conversations to have because, like you said, you were struggling privately And sometimes it's just hard to talk about, especially when you don't feel like you have other people who are understanding what you're going through. Because I have a lot of parents who are working with me that join my membership or my community and are finally like, wow, I didn't have any other parents who are going through the same thing as me to be able to talk about our experiences. And I feel like it can be this private struggle when it's so great and normal to be able to talk about these huge feelings and grief
Mhm.
that a lot of parents say, I'm grieving the life that I thought that I was going to have. I'm grieving the life that I thought my child was going to have, and that's all completely normal and good to be
Yeah.
able to experience that with other people.
And actually, there's some research that suggests that that's really necessary and that it's a biological inevitability. They say that when you're carrying a baby, you have these hopes and dreams to get you through the sleep deprivation and the terrible twos and the up all night crying and all those things, because you think, well, once I've got through this stage, I've got all that to look forward to. So when you have a baby with disability and that's gone, it's almost like you have to recalibrate. And so that's a part of the grief process for mums of disabled children as well. And I think it's always really important to stress that you can absolutely adore the child you've got and still grieve the life you didn't have. Those two things can completely coexist. And it does not make you a bad person. It just makes you human. And it's something that we have to go through.
I think that's so true. It's an and, not an or. You can do both.
Completely. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, I mean, this whole process can feel really isolating as a parent. And people say, it takes a village, it takes a village. And then it's like, well, where's the village? Where do I find my people? What was that process like for you, and how did you find that village? It sounds kind of like you made your own also.
I think I did to a degree, partly because I was so stubborn. And at the beginning, I didn't want to engage with other special needs groups. It just felt icky for me to be making friends with people just because they got a disabled child. I was thinking, well, what if they're not even a very nice person and I'm stuck with them as a friend just because we've got disabled kids in common? And so I kind of stayed away. I was my own worst enemy in many ways. But then I published my book and I started blogging and I found a blogging community. So that became an online space for me of mums of children with SEND. And so that became my first tribe, if you like. And then from there, I created SEND Gin and Cheese, which has become a tribe and more. It's more of a movement now, really, over here. And internationally, we've got people in Germany, Hawaii, all over the place. So, yeah, I think I created what wasn't there for me at the time.
Which is amazing. You say stubborn, but I don't think that's the case. I think that that's amazing that the internet brings us such amazing people that we might not be able to connect with. And I think Instagram is a really great example of that too, because I see this really amazing community of moms who have kids on the autism spectrum or with special needs being able to connect here in the States. But I also see, I mean, you're doing this amazing thing in the UK as well. I also wonder, how long did it take you to be like, I found my village? Maybe that's a interesting question, but I wonder if it might make some parent feel less alone.
12 years for me.
Mm.
Some people are fortunate enough to find their people very early on. I didn't. I am blessed that I've got a couple of very good close friends that stuck by me. I lost a lot of friendships. People just didn't know what to say, how to interact. It just felt too awkward for them. And so they backed away graciously and quietly. And there was no arguments. They just faded. And that's a really tough reality and a different kind of grief for mums as well. And dads, we've started to support dads as well now, because that's a very unspoken about topic over here. I don't know what it's like in the US, but dads seem to get left behind a lot on that. But yeah, it took me a long time. And so I would say to anybody else that is struggling, it is worth the wait. Persevere. And it is about quality over quantity. You don't need an army. You just need one or two people that truly get it.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And I think, again, having people who have been through this and being able to establish these communities. I mean, it was 2005 whenever you first received the diagnosis, which, first of all, back in the early 2000s and in the 90s, I mean, my brother was diagnosed with autism in 97. no resources, no community, there's nothing. And I mean, with the development of social media, you are able to connect. And it sounds like, I mean, Facebook was one place that you were able to really create this kind of community, but it's definitely a conversation, how different it was.
Yeah. And I think even now, sorry to interrupt you, even now, I think people have to be a little bit wary because social media is a bit of a double-edged sword. In one sense, we can compare, and the comparison journey can be very, very painful and very triggering. And then there are so many online communities now that sometimes we can dip in, and some of them can be a little bit toxic. Some of them are with people who aren't quite in the right place yet, and they're still very angry. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've been furious through my journey. But I think when you get a lot of people in that state, it kind of fuels it. And so lots of people will come into my community saying, wow, there's no backstabbing, there's no falling out with people. And I'm like, no, because I make it clear that this is a compassionate space. So I think, go out there, find the communities, but just be a little bit mindful and cautious with your energy about where you're placing it.
That's great advice. It's really good advice. So now tell us about S.E.N.D Gin Cheese. What is it? What do you do? Like, what does this look like online? And then do you host in-person events as well?
Yeah, we do. So I offer mentoring for mums, and some of the mums will come in for mentoring sessions saying, I can't afford your time. And I'm not expensive over here in the UK at all, but it broke my heart to turn mums away. So I created S.E.N.D Gin Cheese as a free Facebook community just so that mums could get together. And in the space of 12 months, we've got over 3,000 mums now. We just launched the dads group, so that's got just over 100. That's going to be a completely different vibe. I think the dads talk and come together in a completely different way than mums do. So in S.E.N.D Gin Cheese, we've got this community together. We host meetups. We're going nationwide across the UK this year. Last year, we did 3 meetups across the UK, north, south, and centrally. And yeah, Christmas events. So it's growing from strength to strength. I'm also in the process of developing some mental health support. That's my passion. So we have S.E.N.D Fun and Friends, which is kind of like a stay and play program in the school holidays for parents to come with their S.E.N.D children and siblings. So that's been really well received. But for me, mental well-being and maternal mental health is just crucial, because I think if as a mom, we don't have our foundations solid, we are juggling so much. We are the linchpin that holds everybody together, and we need to be strong for ourselves before we can be strong for anybody else. And so that's my real passion. So we'll be rolling that out this year as well. I could talk all day about the S.E.N.D Gin Cheese courses. I won't. But if people wanted to sort of, hop on my mailing list, I'll be sending information out there. But yeah, that's the vision for this year. Meetups, grow the online space, which is a really non-judgmental, compassionate space where people can share the wins as well as the struggles, because a lot of groups come together to share what's going wrong. And again, that's really valid. But sometimes nobody gets the fact that, and you will get this as a nutritionist, like, oh my God, my kids have just tried broccoli, or my child's eating a different kind of nugget. And we're just like, yes. And you tell a friend and they're like, okay, that's weird. So when we're together and we all understand that you can be each other's cheerleaders as well as each other's support. And so more of that, please, is what I'm hoping for in 2024.
That's amazing. And you're right. It's so nice to be among people who get it, are also in the same headspace as you as well. And some of those wins that people share, a lot of food wins in my community, because that's what I host, that's what I do. And a lot of times they're saying, I have not been able to share this win with anybody because nobody realizes how big of a win this is for my child to touch something new, or for them to put something on their plate. Or we went to the grocery store and there were no meltdowns, like big things that sometimes you keep those wins to yourself. You don't get to celebrate them when you're not among people who really get it.
Completely. And I think we can forget them, or we can overlook them if we're not celebrating them. I think, our lives are busy, they're hectic. And unless we are pulled into the present and just reminded of what's going well, sometimes the tough stuff can dominate. So I think it's really important to celebrate the wins as well as the worries.
Totally. I popped in for a virtual session for you. So tell me a little bit about those for people who aren't in the UK, or can people from anywhere join?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you did the tips in 20 session for us, so that anybody can join that webinar. It's free. It's 20 to 30 minutes tops, because I know, much like yours, we like to keep it bite-sized because it's a bit more digestible then, although I've probably waffled on for ages now. And yeah, I send notifications out. I advertise it on my social media, and I send notifications out to my mailing list so they don't miss it. And I just get guest experts in to offer a little bit more above and beyond my mental health support, because I think it's a nice mixture of, I offer that mental health nurturing aspect, and then we get the practical people in that can come with that real tangible action points that can help their children to develop.
That's amazing. And I think it really is taking that holistic approach, because there are so many pieces and you're juggling all these pieces and you don't need to be the expert in every single thing. Could you elaborate though, when you help moms with like mental health, what does that look like and how do you support moms?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not a counselor, so I have to put that out there. I'm not a trained therapist. I mentor through experience. And for me, my superpower, if you like, I guess my special interest is the language that we use. So when I'm talking to mums, I will listen out for the sort of things that they're saying to themselves repeatedly. And we will either put an action plan together for actions for their children, if that's how we need to move forwards. But more often than not, it's about the mums coming to terms with the life that they are facing. Lots of times they beat themselves up. Lots of times they're trapped in guilt and grief. And we have to address that. And so there's a lot of coaching, a lot of listening around being able to move people through that grief. And I talk about acceptance versus acknowledgement. And really quickly, I'll just explain that sometimes people encourage us to accept the life that we've got, and we can't do that, because for me, I'm never going to accept the fact that I will die and leave Harry vulnerable one day, but I can acknowledge that. And once I can acknowledge it, then I can put things in place. So it takes me out of that victim's headspace and that passive place, but it relieves the pressure of me that I've got to be okay with that reality, because I'm not. And so I talk a lot, I coach a lot around the difference, and allowing people to feel it all, and allowing them to know that it's okay to feel all of it. And so that's my passion, really, is helping mums to get unstuck so that they can be what their children need them to be, and just be a little bit more who they want to be as well.
That's beautiful, Charlie. And I love that. I mean, acknowledgement versus acceptance. I think you're right. Sometimes you can get stuck in a place where we can't build on it. And until we're able to maybe take a few steps back, sit in it, it opens up the gates to be able to move forward. And I think that you put that really beautifully. So what advice would you have for a parent or mom that's really feeling isolated and stuck right now, who's maybe looking for community or just looking for the next step forward?
Yeah, if it's community, I'd say be proactive, comment in local groups. If there isn't a group that you can find, then create one, make one, reach out and just say, I have a child with additional needs, or I have a disabled child. I'm looking for some company with somebody that gets it truly. And as I say, it doesn't have to be loads of people. Sometimes one or two people can make all the difference. And in terms of coming unstuck, then I would say join my mailing list, because I send out sort of mindset tips every Thursday. I do that on my Facebook page as well. And don't be too hard on yourself, and don't believe everything you think is a big one, because I think lots of times we beat ourselves up and we can be our own worst enemy.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that. And can you share where people can find you? And we're going to link at everything that you share in the show notes as well, because I know you have some free resources as well to share.
Yep, I do. So Our Altered Life is the Facebook page and Instagram. That's all my social media handles. And then SEND Gin Cheese is a kind of, it's a branch of that. So SEND Gin Cheese is on Facebook as a community. And there are just some really quick questions to answer so the admins will let you in. So we know it's the right people in the right space and we can protect everybody.
That's amazing. And so I'll share your links for the resource to also join your mailing list, to join the Facebook page, to follow you on Instagram, which you are an amazing follow. I love your honesty on Instagram. Sometimes your stories, I literally laugh out loud, Charlie, because you're just like, it is what it is. And this is what's happening. And I can't even give you an example, but when I see your stories pop up, I'm like, I can't wait to see what Charlie. I love it. I love your attitude, your viewpoint on life, and just all of the energy that you share, I think is really
Thank you. That's really kind to say. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And everyone, go connect with Charlie online and check out her resources and her book as well.
Thank you. Yeah, love it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Nourishing Autism. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd love to invite you to join us inside of the Nourishing Autism Collective, an empowering and supportive community for moms of kids on the autism spectrum to get nutrition and picky eating support from me and my team of autism dietitians, access my autism nutrition library, explore hundreds of kid-friendly recipes, connect with other moms on a similar journey, and learn from top autism experts like occupational therapists, speech therapists, and more. Come join us at nourishingautism.co. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, I'd be so grateful if you shared it with a friend and gave it a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify podcasts so I can spread the word about nutrition for autism and reach more amazing families like you. See you next time.